Welcome to Broadcast to Badass. We're Kimi and Pua, digital media nerds and jiu-jitsu-loving business coaches, joyously obsessed with creating freedom for heart-led entrepreneurs. We're here to help you go from frustrated to fierce, from hustle to flow, from broke-ass to badass. Find out more about us at bledigital.com, and wherever you're listening, be sure to click subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Ryan Williams is an entrepreneur, writer, podcast host, and former stand-up comedian. He's the founder of Influencer Economy, a consulting group that helps brands and entrepreneurs develop and scale their platforms. He also hosts Stories from the Influencer Economy podcast, featured in Apple's New and Noteworthy in 2015. Ryan's professional experience includes 12 years in marketing, business development, and entertainment. He has been a pioneer in the media industry, overseeing online marketing activations for companies such as Disney, Microsoft, Activision, and Warner Brothers. We had so much fun in this conversation, and we can't wait for you guys to meet Ryan. Let's welcome him to the podcast.
Well, welcome, Ryan, to the podcast. It's so great to have you here. We've actually already been having so much fun talking with you that we had to just dive into this conversation already, click record, because we just know this is going to be so fun. So thank you for being here today.
Really excited to be here to help everyone go from broke-ass to badass.
Yeah. Oh, so you are so many things. You're an entrepreneur, a writer, a podcaster, a former stand-up comedian. The list goes on. How do you describe who you are and what you do to other people as it is today?
I live in Los Angeles, and I used to live in Washington, D.C. And the question you get in both those cities is, what do you do? And it's a way people think they're breaking ice with you. And oftentimes, it's a very simple question. So I usually give two answers. One is I say I do marketing. And that's typically to people that don't have any sort of knowledge about what I do. But if I give a detailed answer, I say something like, I help people tell their stories online. And I work with executives, founders, and CEOs to help them pick a platform to tell their stories to the world.
Wow. I love that. Storytelling. And you use the word, I know your podcast and in your writing, influencer. So can you tell us a little bit more about that phrase? I think it's become really becoming more and more well known this day and age. So what is an influencer?
Yeah, an influencer, in my definition, is someone who's a game changer that can take a small idea and seemingly overnight make it into a big idea. They also have the ability to engage, and they listen with purpose to their communities, and they're able to collaborate and work with others really well to galvanize groups of people to help make change. And Seth Godin, the author, he talks about how tribes are really important. And I know you all talk about tribes and help people to find their own groups that are within their affinity circles. And Seth talks about how you need a shared vision and a way to communicate in order to be a member and lead a tribe. And I believe the third element there is collaboration. And that's really key to growing influence. However, in the modern day, a lot of people equate influencer with selling products on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube. And it's been stolen by a bunch of no talent, zero YouTubers or agents in Hollywood or advertising executives. And so unfortunately, the word has been sullied a little bit. But I still stick to my definition of it being a game changer.
Love that. I was going to actually ask what your thoughts were, because when I think of influencer, I do think of somebody who's, in for like they're looking to become a quote unquote influencer to get sponsorships, to get free product, to get things, right? And I love the way that you've shifted that or sunk into the original definition, perhaps, where it's about service, it's about community,
yes,
collaboration. And I love that you infuse that with storytelling. So
yeah, the word service is dead on. I like that you use that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that goes hand in hand, right? With sharing your story, sharing your why, knowing why what you do lights you up and how it is in service to the world. So can you share a little bit about how storytelling and being an influencer are connected and how to utilize those to spread your message and the message of others?
Yeah, when I help others to spread their message, I often cite examples of great storytellers that are traditional business authors, people like Seth Godin or Adam Grant, who wrote a really good book called Give and Take, or Dory Clark, who wrote Entrepreneurial You. And then I mash it up with the top YouTubers, podcasters, gamers that play Fortnite and Minecraft, people that are doing digital projects with influence in the modern day. And so I've mashed up those two worlds because I think that storytelling online is the only way to really get visibility anymore. And you have to figure out what your story is. And if you want to grow influence, stories matter. And I get so mad, I get so angry, and I get really pissed off at all these bullshit artists that are telling fake stories that they tell really well to get you hooked. And then they want to sell you some bullshit information product. Like what I'm saying? Like, these people, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, tell you they're homeless and they have this big pitch. I go to these marketing conferences and it infuriates me because they talk about how they are homeless at one point in their life and their girlfriend broke up with them and they were unemployed, but then they figured out how to make money on LinkedIn. And this is how you can do it too if you pay them $1,000, right? These like BS con artists, consultants.
Yeah, it's so messed up. And it's so messed up that people are thinking like, who am I to start a business because I don't have a sad story to tell? I've heard that a lot. People are like, they feel like they can't share their story because it's not sad enough or it wasn't dark enough or, If
you saw me right now, I'm like moving my body. Like you just caused me convulse because you hit it right there. It's like people don't think they're good enough or they feel like they don't have a social media following, so they can't, launch a business, or they feel like that they're never going to be seen. And it's daunting, right? It's a noisy environment. And so this person that I know that talked about being homeless, they went to Princeton. They went to Princeton University. Like no one from Princeton, I hate, to break it to anyone, is never going to be homeless, right? Like you have an infrastructure. It's like Silicon Valley. A lot of these companies, they are founded by these Stanford graduates that come from wealthy families. But they don't tell you that. They don't say like, oh, the founders of Instagram were from wealth and they went to Stanford and they had great jobs after college because they went to a great university and they weren't in student debt. I mean, that's not real. That is BS. And I feel like we have this mythology around stories that are wrong. And so I think it's our jobs to like pull back like behind the curtain and debunk these myths, because I think it sends the wrong message to people who maybe don't know any different.
Wow, that's so powerful. And yeah, it's sort of like, there's this, I think really in the past, I don't know how long, like few years, the word vulnerability and authenticity, they're kind of getting, they're talked about a lot. And so people feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be like over vulnerable or make up a story that sounds really vulnerable and raw so that I can get something. And I think it's that same thing of like the getting versus the serving. So yeah, this is such an interesting conversation. And so for people listening that are like, okay, what then is my story and how do I find it? And is it, where do you start with people with figuring out what the story is that they are meant to tell? One that feels good, but isn't sort of, overplaying vulnerability just to get something, but actually is rooted in service.
Yeah. I think that you saying overplaying vulnerability is a great, not good thing to do. It's like terrible. And a lot of storytellers, like I have a podcast, you as fellow podcast host, when people overplay their hand with their story early on, every story has a beginning, middle, and end. There's 3 acts to it. It's how typical screenwriting, screenplays are written. And if people overplay their act 1, when they were homeless and then they tell you they went to Princeton and in the third part of the story, that's really what it comes down to. And I talk about everyone needs 3 types of stories in their back pocket at all times. And one of the stories you need is what I call your authority story. And that's not talking about how amazing you are or how much of an expert you are. It's teaching someone something so they can walk away from the conversation having learned something from you they could tell their friend, their husband, their spouse very easily so they understand what you're about. And so that's more teaching. And I don't know about you. Have you ever gone to any of these dinners? They call them like influencer dinners where you pay $100 and you get to sit next to interesting people, and it's a curated, another overhyped word, curation, right? They've curated a bunch of thought leaders, and you go to these dinners, and I sat next to this guy once, and I asked him what he does, like what's he up to and what he's about. And he told me, no joke, he makes six figures. And I was like, oh, really? You make six figures? I don't want to ask this question, but I need to know, how do you make six figures? He says, I make six figures helping people make seven figures. And I was so over it, right? Because that's not authority. That is not translating. That is not messaging. And no one's learning from you. And so I think at the end of the day, like if you could teach someone something about what you're doing to help others, to serve others, to solve people's problems, and having that badass authority story, then that's a really great way to not oversell, some traumatic moment in your life.
I love it. What are the other two stories?
The other two stories, so it's the authority story, and then the other story that I really love is the fixer story. And that's when you talk about the problems you solve for other people. So it's like I help people, find their freedom to launch a business, or, I help people to tell their stories if they're executives, and helping people understanding how you're solving problems instead of saying how much money you make or how much you have 20 million in revenue, or you sold your company to Adobe, right? I'm tired of the vanity metrics where people think that all this money matters. Because if you're not happy with the money, I know a lot of people that are in their 30s and 40s that are unhappy because they have a lot of money and they're miserable. And so at the end of the day, like you got to figure out how you fix problems and to use your word, solve problems and helping others and service. I love that word, service. And then the last story is your underdog story. And it's not forced vulnerability like we're talking about. It's actually explaining a moment where you were an outsider and you were an underdog like Rocky or Rudy or someone else, and you overcame that obstacle and you were an outsider. Often this works for startup founders who've overcome a lot of obstacles to launch their business, but it could be surviving a layoff, surviving, depression. And I was clinically depressed in my early 20s when I was doing stand-up comedy. And so I often tell that story, and it really isn't from an outsider's perspective of how I overcame that challenge.
Brilliant. I love that. I love so much also how you have this air of possibility about you. And I think it's so important for people who are just stepping into this entrepreneurial space to hear that, there's value to being yourself. And there's so much noise, as you said out there, so much comparison that happens especially when you aren't really sure what you're doing yet. You have this vision. You actually know that you can solve a problem, and you're unsure about how to get the word out. And I love that you're just saying, share how you can solve the problem. And I think what we often coach our clients on is to, again, like people don't really care about what it is. Like they don't want you to list all the things that you can do or how you put this together. All anybody cares about is that you hold the solution to their pain.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. I interviewed this guy named Nir Eyal who wrote a book called Hooked, how to build products that can form habits. And he ended up giving this great comparison about whether or not when you're a tech founder, are you building a vitamin or a painkiller? And that means, vitamin, I don't even know if vitamins work, right? My doctor said he wasn't sure if they worked. I take them. What?
That's reassuring.
That's reassuring, right? No opinion on it. And however, a painkiller is something I need because my body or something is throbbing and it needs immediate attention. And I've taken that and I look at that for your story and the work you do and how you serve others. Is this a vitamin I'm giving people that they feel like if they take it, it's nice to have? Or is it a painkiller? Is it a gotta have? Does it solve a problem? And does it help them immediately with the problem, something that they're struggling with?
Cool.
I want to take that one step deeper and say, is it a vitamin? Does it just make you feel nice, like placebo action? Is it a painkiller where it makes you feel awesome because you have no pain? Or are you digging so deep that you are actually healing the wound that's causing the pain that makes you need the painkiller. Like, is that the solution that you're providing? Because that's badass.
That's like that's like getting, yeah, write a check for $100,000 right now. Right? I mean, if you can heal someone, because a lot of us that are entrepreneurs, like to your point, we're searching for something. We're looking for something with more meaning or purpose. And if you're helping others and there's something deep that we learned as a kid or we learned in college or just something we've acquired subconsciously that is hurting us, and you can solve that deeply embedded problem and then take it to the next level and heal, I mean, that's it. That's it. Totally agree. Let's just stop the interview right now. Drop the microphone. That's great. I love that. I think we should use that as the third tier.
Yes.
Can you heal people, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Totally.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit because we love hearing you talk about things you're excited about. So let's talk about the word hustle and how you
the three of us barf in our mouth a little.
Oh my gosh. I need to
hold on.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, tell us your take on the word hustle, because we're having fun talking about this earlier, and we'd love to hear you share your thoughts on this.
The hustlers are in the same conversation as the unemployed, homeless Princeton graduates that are just full of BS. Like they have to broadcast how hard they work because they're so insecure that they're not succeeding enough. And they think that the perception of the reality, I hate the word hustle. I think it's been overused. It's hackneyed. It's cliched. And don't rise and grind, hashtag rise and grind. Like, don't just tell me how hard you're working, because as we both agree, work smarter, not harder. And I'd rather hang out with my family and relax on the beach and take a vacation that I've earned instead of hustling my face off and bragging about it to make myself feel good to the outside world. And it's just a terrible example that people hard work doesn't pay off. That's where I think a bigger problem in our society is right now. A lot of people think that if you work hard, you succeed. And that shit ain't working for us, right? A lot of people work really hard and get laid off. Sadly for us, it's the skills you have, it's the knowledge you have, it's the ability to cultivate your talent. That's more important than hard work at the end of the day.
Amen.
Yeah, screw the hustlers. I mean,
now you drop the mic.
Yeah, I'll drop the mic. I mean, it's bullshit because you get people. I mean, I live in the lower 48 states, right? And people here, they think that there's some sort of entitlement if you work hard. And I wish that was true, right? Wouldn't in the ideal world be if I worked a 10-hour day, I would make good money to live on? And that's just not the truth. And people aren't having honest conversations about that. Instead, they'd rather pretend that working hard matters, but it's a vanity metric. It's a flawed statistic, and it's not the real world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, people are they're numbing their pain, and they are avoiding the things that will actually move their business and their life forward because those things are scary. So they'll numb their pain with these low-level tasks that make them feel busy that they have to do all day long when they don't really even need to get done. And if they do, they probably don't need to get done by you. But it feels good to complete things. It feels good to stay busy and check things off so that you don't have to look at the big scary thing that's beyond your comfort zone, or that you haven't acknowledged is the thing that you really want to be doing or that you really should be doing. So I think you nailed it for sure. Yeah,
I mean, we all have these tasks that we need to do that are ordinary, mundane, basic stuff. Invoicing, right? It's a pain in the ass. But if you're broke ass to badass, you got to look deeper, and you got to see what moves the needle here. And I think we all have blind spots, to your point, that we maybe have things that are bigger problems that we avoid because it's easier. And I think that people are afraid of talking about death. They're afraid about talking about money, and they're often afraid about talking about sex. Those are three very difficult topics. And I think if we all talked about money more honestly, then this would be a lot easier conversation to have.
For sure. So true. We have clients right now who are trying to, we were talking to one of them yesterday. I think she'd be okay with me sharing this story. She's releasing a pilot program, and she's like, well, I'm just going to like do this thing and let people know that it's like $50. It's a 6-week program just because I feel bad. It's like the first time. I don't want them to have to like pay a lot of money to go through it. And everybody on the call was just like, are you out of your mind? Like, you are such a powerful person and you're going to heal so many people. It's not fair to them for you to discount this because money's uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you undervalue yourself.
Totally. And so we had that whole conversation and she's totally on it now. It's going to be awesome, super epic. But I do think that there's so much unnecessary guilt and shame around talking about money. And I love that you said that. And I would love to kind of start to move this conversation from hustling, which I think is often misused for like things like launches or, getting leads, getting clients. How do you coach people, or what do you suggest in terms of creating hype around a launch or anything like that, aside from the hustle aspect of it?
Yeah, I agree about, the hustle. It's this metric of success that doesn't help you launch anything. And so working really hard at being busy and then having zero launch partners, to get your product out there is terrible. So I'm a firm believer in collaboration. And when I coach people, I have a product called pitch influencers. And I tell people directly that if you pitch influencers, make it compelling, and you're writing emails, like make a killer headline. I say three things. One is you need a give and an ask, and then a take, right? And so like if you're going to give them something, what is it? If you're going to ask for something, what is it? If you're going to take something, what is it? And you don't really want to take anything from them ever, because that's just a bad signal that you're sending to folks. And so then we take that column and we get rid of it, because ultimately if you give and you ask, then that's the great model for life. And you have to eliminate the fact that you maybe want to take something from a person, because ultimately, like, we need to weed out takers in our life. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. And so when you're talking about your client and their $50 product, it's almost like they're afraid that they're going to be perceived as being a taker. When you flipped it around and you're like, no, actually, you're a giver, you're healing, you're helping, you're building an opportunity for someone to collaborate. And I think that at the end of the day, if you make things a win-win, and I pitch people all the time to be partners with me. I get pitched continually, like you get pitched all the time. And I believe, like, if you're trying to get noise or attention, like, make a spreadsheet, list your influencers, list your collaborators, list people that can really help you, and don't focus on people that are not going to help you. Because at the end of the day, like, you waste your time trying to convince someone, hey, I got this big idea. Are you into it? And then you spend all this time. You're like, oh, they were never going to help me. And so I believe you have to delineate between who the influencers are and who your core collaborators are, and just make lists. And it's brute force, and outreach, and figure out who you have in your network, stay in touch with people, and, use a lot of just general, like, try to be a thoughtful, purposeful networker and build relationships, all the time.
Love that. So with all of the influencers that you've interviewed, this might be a hard question to answer, an easy one, I'm not sure. You'll have to tell us. But what are the common traits? You've interviewed hundreds of influencers, people that are really, crushing it online. It would be, to other people, that's the appearance. And I mean, people that just are doing really, really amazing things out there. So are there common traits that you see, things that we could learn from the top influencers out there right now?
Yeah, absolutely. My book is 10 chapters, which is the 10 habits of influential people. And if I had to rename that book again, I would call it 10 habits of influential people. Great. Because that's what it really is. And, one of the traits of influential people is they like to connect in real life. And online is wonderful, but you need to meet people face to face. And so I'm a firm believer in traveling to meet people if you can at conferences or events, hosting dinners in your town or city with other influential people, trying to make connections. Another trait is opening doors for other people. I would say 90% of the people who are influential are givers. There's a really good book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. He talks about how there's givers, takers, and matchers, and how givers, succeed the most in life but they also fail the most in life. And so you really have to give with purpose and give with your own best interests. And it's not feeling like you're being selfish, but you want to help others and also help yourself and make it a win-win. And then most of us are matchers. We help each other, but it's transactional, like more quid pro quo. And then there's takers, which you want to, get out of your life. So meeting people in your life is a trait. Opening doors for others is a trait. Also giving your community, your customers ownership of your brand and investing time in making your product with them. An example I give is when I published my book, The Influencer Economy. I put it online and gave it to my community, my friends, and my email list for free before it came out. And my wife made fun of me. She thought it was a terrible idea. She's like, I can't believe you want to lose money on your book. Why are you giving it out for free? You're an idiot. And I said, just trust me. It's going to make the book better. And when I realized it made the book better, and so I did an agreement. Like if you gave me an edit, if I didn't use it or not, right? Because some of these ideas were terrible. You can't listen to everyone. But I would give you an editor title in my book. And so I have 80 crowd editors at the end of my book. Everyone's in the acknowledgments. Then I realized after they made the book better, the first people to buy my book, leave Amazon reviews, help me get it trending on publishing day were these people that were crowd editors because they emotionally helped me build the product and we made it together. And that's why making a pilot program like you're mentioning with your client is so helpful because you get that feedback and then they become your top word of mouth ambassador marketers.
Love Brilliant. That. Whoa. Like, okay, let's close it up.
Did your microphone fall? Do we have to pick it up?
Yeah. Actually, I think yours fell out of your hand when you dropped it.
Okay, I'm grabbing it right now. I got
it. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So something that we've been talking about recently has been joint venture partnerships.
Yes.
And I'd love to get your take on that selfishly so that we can learn from it and execute it because it's something that we haven't done yet and we're really excited to dive into this world. And I'm wondering what you have to say about it.
The joint ventures it's very interesting. I think you got to just vet people really well if you want to partner up with them. And sometimes you need to give them financial incentives. And if they have a community of people that you could collaborate with or customers potentially that you could network with to build your business out, then that's critical. And like, for example, today I'm doing a webinar, I'm doing a video chat with someone and they have a large audience of entrepreneurs from around the world. And at the end, I'm going to, sell my product and it's an information, essentially it's a 3-month collaboration with me and, helping people. I coach them, I advise them, I have courses and then I'm going to sell it to the community of this audience because they like this content. And you know what? I'm confident I'm not full of shit. And I think that people like us, based on how we see the world, like we're not just some taking people, like we're not takers. And there's so many snake oil hustler salesmen out there and women that just, they sell you on this dream, right? Like, oh, you're going to make $1 million because I made $1 million. And it's not how the reality of it works. And I think I worked overly, I focused on a brand that was real and it comes through. And I'm a firm believer in breaking through the noise right now is being real with yourself. You don't necessarily have to be authentic, right? Because that's such a vague word to many people. I do believe authenticity is when your actions match your words. But you have to find people like you that you want to collaborate with. And also accept the fact you may have to work with people that aren't like you, that could be takers, but at the same time, like how do you navigate them? Because if they have an opportunity for you to do a JV, like a webinar or some sort of co-promotion of an email list, like you just got to find the right allies. And so I'm doing this, talk later today. And well, I'm a firm believer in like, as long as you're upfront about the expectations and, you make it a win-win. And this person I'm just they're helping me. Like I'm not going to pay them. It's just more of it's like, I have great content. I'm a firm believer in it. And I think that that's what's important. And at the end of the day, that speaks louder than oftentimes making people money. Because this with a podcast, you could talk to really interesting people that are very successful that maybe just like to have a good conversation. The barrier to entry is so low I think right now, because there's so much bullshit out there, that honestly, like just going about your way with meaning and listening to others is, and to use that word again, like serving other people, you'll sort out the right partners and hopefully you'll all make great money.
That's a great answer. Yeah. I love that. I love how it all comes back to relationships and like just being like a cool person and not a dick, It's like, it's so
don't
basic.
Be an asshole.
It's so basic and yet so like under practiced, and we tend to want to really complicate things when it comes to doing business and just doing life. And so, yeah, I love the simplicity of that, and you can just feel your passion, feel your heart, and feel how real you are. We just love what a straight shooter you are. And thank you for being part of the anti-hustle movement.
Well, I think we need to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And will you join me in now talking about the no asshole rule?
Yes.
Like, I profiled some guy in my book, Bill Simmons. He's like a sports writer, and he started a company around sports journalism and blogging and writing about different sports culture, and he had a no asshole rule when he built his team. And I just thought that, like, just say it, right? Just put it out there. Like, people, like, don't work with people like that, because we can't keep, like, reinforcing them to be assholes, because that's just not how it works. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not where our culture is going. And so, it's all about trying to break through all the noise. And really, I think, like, I talk about how to tell 3 stories like a badass, because I'm a believer that you just got to channel that badass in the right moments to really, like, own and believe in what you're doing, to convince people that it's the right thing to do and that you have their best interest at heart. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, you just got to fix things for people, and that works. But assholes, they do not do that.
So true.
Have you ever had someone use that word so many times in your podcast?
No, but I think it's going to be a requirement from now on.
I mean, it's just like, I'm tired of these people. They're such, like, I live in LA and there's so many, like, self-help gurus around here. And I don't know if Hawaii's like this too, but it's infuriating.
If they're around, they don't talk to us. I haven't met a whole lot of them here, but I think, don't we say, okay, so we have this Facebook group and it's public. You have to ask to join, but anybody can join it. And we have, how all these Facebook groups have these, like, long lists of rules of things you can and can't do. I just want to read ours because I think you'd find it really awesome.
Yeah.
Number 1, don't be gross, salesy, or spammy. Number 2, don't be a dick. Number 3, don't be a troll. Number 4, don't make us have to make more rules.
Wow. I love it.
I think that should just be rules in life.
I like number 4.
We don't like to have to make rules. Like, don't
just
be that person.
When's your book coming out? And those are like the first 4 chapters of your book.
I love it. There you go.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, this has been so much fun. We don't want it to end. But tell us, where can people find out more about you? Where can they get their hands on your book? What's the best place for people to go to find out more about Ryan Williams?
Yes, they can find more about me. Influencercomedy.com is my website, and my book's on Amazon if you search for Ryan Williams. And my podcast, search for Ryan Williams as well, and it pops up. And this is amazing. We have a connectivity level that's very high right here. So I am pumped to be here and look forward to collaborating again.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We're super excited to be connected.
Absolutely.
As always, we can continue the conversation in our tribe on Facebook. You can find that at bit.ly/BLE tribe.
If you guys are ready to take action and level up your life and your business, jump on the phone with us and book a breakthrough call. You can find out all about our 8-week course and all of the ways that we support you and your business dreams at brokeasstobadass.com.